What a palaver. My laptop died, we had internet connections, but I feel like we are here. Welcome back to episode 3 of Bridging Universe.
Welcome.
Welcome. I am Jack. This is the lovely Nadine. She is now back in Europe, fresh from her travels around Asia, learning all things wonderful and spiritual. And that's actually one thing we're going to go into today with our subject on what is spirituality to us.
What is spirituality in general? Tell me, Jack, what is spirituality? We all use it, but what is it?
How do you even begin to that's like opening Pandora's box, just like right, try to describe everything you know about spirituality. It's such a broad question, isn't it? Like spirituality, like what is spirituality?
We can do a fun little exercise for everyone who's listening. Please let me finish the sentence and then pause the podcast. Grab a pen, grab a paper, and just for 5 minutes, write for yourself down what is spirituality. So before listening to our view on what is spirituality, write it down for yourself. What is it? And then listen to us and review what you've written down and be like, do I agree? Do I not agree? How do I feel?
I love that. I think that's a really good one as well. So go away, pause it, come back in
And
5
come back.
minutes. We'll still be here. We'll still be here.
We'll still be chatting.
We'll still be just chatting. That's what we love to do. So Nadine, do you want to start? Like what is spirituality to you?
I think that spirituality is as easy as I see it and as difficult as I make it. So as easy as I see it and as difficult as I make it. Because spirituality is kind of like everything and nothing at the same time. To me, spirituality is looking at all the depth that is to life and everything that there is to life more than the things that my brain tells me I have to do. Yeah.
Nice.
What is spirituality to you?
I would say for me, I guess if I look back and think, when did I start to become spiritual, right? When did I start to believe that there was more to like everything we see and perceive to be real, to be in front of us, to be this consciousness we have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess thinking back to when I was a child, I always believed, when my dog died when I was 5, my mum was like, "No, the doggy's going to doggy heaven." And I guess that was my first sort of inkling of spirituality outside of me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Believing that there's more than what the eye can see, believing that there's more to what we perceive. I guess the older I got and the more information I found out about these certain practices and certain cultures, I then started to question that what I believed my whole life. So that reality, right? Of like, why do I think this? Where does this come from? That sort of thing. In terms of the word spirituality, it's such a hard word now for me because I know sort of everything. I don't know everything. Like God, that would be like that would be insane.
That's not
Like that's
possible.
not possible. But like in terms of
The more you know, the more you don't know,
exactly,
honestly.
exactly. But I think under that word of spirituality comes so much knowledge and so much awareness, and there's so much, underneath that. So I feel like asking ourselves what is spirituality is like the hardest question to answer because it's different to everybody, right? Like everybody has a different concept of it, different understanding of it, and that is absolutely fine. It is to you what it is to you. And nobody else can tell you any different. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot we could get into regarding spirituality, but in terms of an overall what does it mean to me, I guess that's the best way I can kind of describe it. It's like everything outside of me, that isn't in my reality for me, if I'm going to put
I
a point
like.
on it. Yeah.
Do you remember your first spiritual thing or what you see as a spiritual thing is that you did? Because I have a funny story about
My
mine.
first spiritual thing, I mean, I guess one of them would be when I was 7, my grandma died. And it was quite like a pivotal moment in my life. Looking back now on all of the stuff that um the cause and effect of that, what happened when I was 7 and being so young, what that happened in my life. Again, spirituality, because you can look back and analyze all of the data that we've had in, to me, that's spirituality as well. So basically, it's what's on the tea, right? So on the cup in front of
Wait,
me,
can you show me again?
there's a red robin, okay? Now, a red
Yeah.
robin, sometimes, I don't know I don't know, in our culture for sure, it symbolizes a past loved one. So that sometimes when we see a robin, I mean, I talk to them when I see them. But whenever I was young, when we would see a robin, my mum would always be like, that's your grandma coming to see you to say hello, just to remind you. So I guess from that sort of age, every time I saw a robin, I was very much like, wow, like, and I really, even to this day, truly see that as a message for me. I saw one not only a couple of days ago when I was going through a bit of a emotional half an hour, which we're all allowed to do, up and down, you know,
Absolutely, we need them.
and yeah, this robin came, and I was like, and I just now I kind of just laugh. I'm like, you like you come, you know when to come and see me. So I guess yeah, that was the first sort of, I would say, spiritual kind of. I mean, again, I don't even know if I feel comfortable calling it spiritual. I don't know. It's just like again, it comes under that that umbrella term. But yeah, for me, I guess that was the first time I sort of questioned like, oh, there's more than just this. Like everything I see and can feel and touch and smell.
Hmm.
So yeah, but yeah, cool. Look on the cup.
It's
It's
so
on there.
cute. I
You
love
can't
it.
see the cup, obviously. You're listening through your headphones. But if you close your eyes and imagine a cup with a robin on it, you might be able to.
Then you will see it. I think with spirituality, it's also like there are so many things we can call spirituality, but also, in my opinion, a lot of things we can call life. Because for me, doing my practices in the morning, like yoga and meditation, we can call it spirituality, but it's just a way of living. It's just me being a human. And it's so interesting to me how you don't have to navigate like, oh, is this spiritual? Is this weird? Is this normal?
Mm,
I remember having a conversation with one of our friends about it actually, because I forget that things or practices that I do are not like common knowledge.
mm.
So I was chatting with her and I was like, oh, you know what? Have you done a wound cleansing lately? Because I feel like you should do one or do a yoni steam. And she just stared at me blankly. And there was a moment where I was like, sometimes I really have to think about the things I say and that it's
Yeah.
not that normal to be like, oh, do this and this and this.
Mm.
And that was so funny to me because, like, to me, it's all just part of life. And I don't even like calling it spirituality.
No.
I'm not even sure whether I like to call myself that spiritual because to me, being like, oh, I'm a spiritual person makes me kind of feel like I'm part of a religion. As a child, like I grew up in a Christian family.
Same.
Actually, I'm still in a Christian family. Being back at my parents' place reminds me of that because there's a church in front of my house. And like my whole family is Christian. And I remember being a child and always thinking like, yeah, it's fun that there is Christianity, but every religion prays to the same God anyway. And I still like absolutely agree with that. I truly believe that every religion, every form of spirituality, every way of living life in the end leads to the same thing, which is, in my opinion, love. So being like, oh, I'm spiritual and comparing forms of spirituality to me just feels silly. It's
Mm.
like there are a million ways to roam. All the different ways bring you somewhere else, and we all just do whatever feels right.
It's funny you touched on religion there. Like religion's very much like you said, we all pray to the same God, right?
In my opinion,
Yeah, I would agree
it's
with
not
that.
the truth.
I would
It's
agree
my
with that.
truth.
I think, and I think spirituality has this, enables you to be present and to be mindful and to be, with yourself. Whereas I feel like religion has a very much of a more of a structured approach to like
Hmm.
spirituality. And I grew up in the same, yeah, Christianity. So I grew up in I wouldn't say a heavily religious family, but they obviously like wanted me to go to church. I wanted to go to a church school. Like my parents wished for me to go to a church school. So I started to go to church from like the age of like 6 or 7. And I studied till I was like 13 or 14. But I used to do exams and like everything. Like I was honestly, like, all of these exams, like, I don't know what qualifications
I
they
have a
are. I definitely don't
question.
put those on my CV. I don't know what they are.
Did they teach you? Wait, this is a very off-topic question, but it
Mm,
is something that pops in my mind because I went to a Christian school as well, like a Christian primary school.
yeah.
What did they teach you about the start of the world? Because I only got teach the fact that God made the world.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until I was like going to university that people told me about like other theories. And then I realized like, whoa, it's actually so weird that everyone learned this in school, but I
Mm.
went to a Christian school and the only thing I learned was God.
Yeah.
It's so funny. So did they teach you in school how the world started, or did you just
No,
learn
no,
God made
no,
the world?
no. God just sat there in his little chair and started to make the world, like just started to make it and yeah, and
Which is also a beautiful, beautiful thing, actually. It's
beautiful
a beautiful
story.
story.
Yeah, it is a beautiful story. And the Bible, as well as lots of other religious scriptures, have amazing, incredible stories to teach us lessons and to help us understand, different scenarios and situations we might come up against. I think it's a brilliant way, I haven't read the Bible in many years, but for sure, I think having that as a child definitely gave me some more to believe in something out again outside of this, But then when I went to high school, it was like, the Big Bang. And I was like, what is the Big Bang? Like, what is that? And they're like, yeah, debunk the whole thing. And now I'm very much of that opinion, like you said, that, we all worship the same God. My brain's like firing little like little things off inside when I think about that. But um, yeah, it's interesting difference between
Maybe it's
religion.
fun to go into like the difference between religion and spirituality.
Mm.
So I think for me, the big difference in religion and spirituality is that with all due respect, I really, really, I would do want to say this first. Like, I think that religion is a beautiful thing, and I really respect people who are following a certain religion. I think it's super, super beautiful. The only problem that I have is kind of like with the constitution of a church or the constitution of any religion, because then it becomes kind of like this restrictive way and
Mm.
people have to follow certain rules. And I don't fully believe in that because to me, it is more worthwhile that, for example, one of the things in Christianity is don't lie. I would rather have someone who's not religious at all, but who looks in the mirror, who looks into their heart and is like, hey, lying is bad. I do not want to lie because, in my opinion, that's bad.
Oh.
And they actually have the reasoning behind that. Where I struggle a little bit with people being like, I cannot lie because of Christianity and God. And then you ask
I'll
them
go to
why, and
hell
it's
if
like,
I do, you know?
I go to hell. And
Yeah,
like,
like,
I cannot do that because of Christianity. And then I'm
yeah.
like, yeah, but there's a deeper why behind that.
Mm.
And there's more thinking behind that. And sometimes that's a little bit what I struggle with in religions,
Oh.
that it's a lot of rules that people follow without questioning that and without feeling it. It's not like in the body, it's not in the heart. It's just like this is normal, so we do this.
I think as well with the rules, I think like some will say rules are there to be broken. But I think of being as the, someone that comes from like religious, backgrounds, I feel like with all the rules that they have, it's hard sometimes, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to break rules, and I feel like a lot of those structures, gear up towards like persecuting people for that, and it's part of life, like it's part of life. You're going to make mistakes. But I think, like you said, religion has this much more of a structure, and it's about lots of people following the same structure, which I see, there's a lot of benefits in that for sure, in having community and having, people to rely on and having a sense of, togetherness. I think opposite that, the spiritual side is very much more like you. It's about you, right? It's about like your internal, personal religion, shall we say, and how you treat yourself and how you look at the world and how you look at other people and how you treat other people, So I think that's the two major differences. It's quite clear, we're clear to point out is that I think spirituality has this much more of a personal connection than what religion does with a big community.
So would actually dare to argue what is, I wouldn't say wrong, but what is one of the things that I worry about in spiritualism is that it is a lot about the I and a lot about
Mm.
how can I grow and how can I learn and what am I doing, and like a lot of this I in which you can learn a lot about yourself, about the world. But a beautiful thing that we can learn from religion in that sense is that feeling of community, because in the end, even if you're doing a lot of work on yourself, we're all part of the universe, we're all
Mm.
part of this world, we're all a human. And I feel like putting things into the perspective of the community feeling and bringing things into the perspective of there is a we and that we feeling is really important. Actually, I even had a phase in my life where I was like super interested in any religions. I think I've read books on like Buddhism, Hinduism, Sufism, the Islam, the Catholic Christianity, and like all these different types of things. And that was super, super interesting as well because in all the books I read, I could find like things that I would really resonate with. And that also really opened my eyes to like, yeah, in the end, we're all praying to the same God. And I feel like it's also important to give credits because sometimes, especially if you look at like New Age spirituality, there's a lot of using, for example, Hindu gods without understanding the background behind that, which is cultural appropriation. And I feel like if we want to use, for example, Kali, we do have to read into who is this energy? Who is this goddess? Like, what are the stories from Hinduism about Kali before we go and use her in a way?
I agree. I agree. Do you think someone
Amazing.
could be deeply spiritual and not follow any religion, or vice versa?
I absolutely think that we can be deeply spiritual and not follow a religion.
Hmm.
I would call myself a very spiritual person, but I would not say that I follow any religion.
Mm.
And at the same time, I do respect religions. But then, you said same. What does it mean to call yourself a spiritual person?
This is what I mean. It's not unlimited cacao ceremonies and a load of ayahuasca. Give you that. I would say that to you. Like I saw a video the other day, and actually, it was like it was talking about what is someone to be seen as spirituality? Is it because they have long hair and they dress like a hippie and they do ayahuasca ceremonies and they're living in Bali in a hut? Like there's just kind of this whole like image now, I feel like, as well, that's coming through for spirituality or spiritual people. And it has to be
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, they sleep on a bed of crystals. And, like, do you know what I mean? And I feel like you said, it really isn't what I think the media is now portraying it to be, in such a way that it's become very mainstream now for people to, when I say mainstream, I mean like cool. Like, and this is the thing, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like a lot of people are just jumping on this like spiritual bandwagon, but a way out, you know?
It's just placing your problems in a different little box. I go
Yeah.
from being addicted to a substance to being addicted to spirituality.
Yes, and I feel like a lot of people can get lost in that as well. And this is the thing with spirituality. I feel like there is this element of like you can get very much lost in what is real and what isn't real, and what you follow and what you don't follow. When you add in things like plant medicines and you add in all of these other experiences that you're able to have, you have to have a strong foundation before you push that, because I feel like you can go too far and you can
Absolutely.
come so far from where you have been if you rush and try to integrate a lot of the things that have taken thousands of years for people to work out, for us to just experience in a weekend or a week.
I would love to respond to this. To me, it's always been pretty rough in a way. If people would come at me and be like, yeah, but I know the truth because during this and this trip,
Mm.
like I saw it all and I know it all and now I understand compassion. And to me, that is just a lot of talk and a lot of brain where I would honestly, my classic answer to this, and this is pretty rude, is like, hey, I really appreciate you opening this conversation, but I would love to invite you to sit with yourself, come to the exact same conclusions with yourself without the help of any substance, and then let's have this conversation when it actually comes from the heart.
Mm.
Because one of the things that I truly believe in, and actually I even teach this when I teach Reiki level 1 to some of my clients, like, you don't need anything. Of course, I'm literally sitting with a crystal in my hand. If you look at my arms, it's full of crystals. Palo Santo, sage, other herbs, essential oils, beautiful tools. I love to use them. Do I need them? No. And I feel like that is such a core thing of what I believe is spirituality and what I teach mostly is like all you need is yourself and your heart and your intention and your attention and your own energy, and that is enough. And then we can add in all the beautiful tools that we want to add in if we feel like we need them, but we cannot like need them in a way. We cannot become addicted to using it. Because, for example, if we look at self-love, you want to work on your self-love, but you only feel love for yourself if you're doing your whole elaborate morning routine of 10 steps and you're wearing your rose quartz crystal and then you love yourself. To me, I'm like, hey, maybe cut the bullshit a little bit and start feeling it and start working on just feeling it when it's just you and nothing else. And go from there. Because we don't need to buy all of those things. And especially with plant medicines, like it's not even good for the planet if all of a sudden everyone starts using it. Like everyone going on trips to Central and South America to do ayahuasca is super bad for the jungle and for the whole environment there.
Ayahuasca's are one of the ones that I've had different people go to experience and come out with completely different experiences. Like, you know, some people go and have, you know, this profound experience of like realization, but it's important to note that although ayahuasca is a spiritual practice, it doesn't become spiritual unless you integrate it. And you can't integrate those sorts of things unless you have the understanding of how that is going to work in your body, you know? And this is the thing, I feel like a lot of people will go and look at that and go, right, it's spiritual, it's cool, let's go and do it, you know? But not actually have, like I said, that underlying understanding of themselves first. I'm not saying don't go and try it if you want to be my guest, you know, go and sit in a forest with a shaman. Anyone could love that, I'm sure. But yeah, I think these experiences, yeah, you have to take seriously, I feel as well, you know? You have to take
Absolutely,
really
yeah.
seriously because at the end of the day, it's not just something to play around with, you know, like the chemical balance of your brain is not just something to be just nilly-willy, you know, altered.
This is also for me why I said in the beginning, what is spirituality? Spirituality is as big and as difficult as I make it to be. Because to me, spirituality can already be. And with spirituality, I mean connecting to myself and connecting to the universe, to love, to whatever I want to call it, can literally be taking a long bath without any music, without any book, just sitting there in the water or going for a walk in nature. You don't need anything. And then, of course, sometimes we all like doing a beautiful ceremony and it can really help us if done in a respectful way, but we don't need all of it. It's beautiful to add to it. It's not like a necessary thing to make you a spiritual person. It also makes me realize like being back here in the Netherlands and seeing, for example, my grandparents going for walks and they cycle. I'm Dutch, we cycle. Like they go cycling for 50 kilometers, and I'm like, they don't do that with headphones in.
No.
They maybe cycle together and they talk, but they don't talk the whole time. And that is also such a beautiful way of connecting to yourself and connecting to nature. That is something that our generation kind of lost. We call it even grounding when we go for a walk, which is
Grounding.
funny.
I love that.
Ground.
Grounding. Big up the tree huggers. Big
I
up all
do
you tree
I
huggers.
do hug a tree sometimes though.
Quick side note: if you can see a tree right now, go and hug it. No, yeah, this is something you just talking. Then something I want to touch on quickly is that like spiritual. You were saying you don't need stuff that like crystals and stuff, right? You don't. It's not something you need, right? Yeah, it's a tool that helps you with certain practices and you know stuff like that. But obviously, there are certain practices that I would say, you know, we do need, you know, that we do need things like you know, meditation or things like yoga, breath work, moving your body, you know, getting outside in nature. Like these things I think really are fundamental things. And I feel like especially getting outside and grounding, being around nature, you'll notice, I can imagine people that live in the city, you know, don't have this sense of grounding so much because they're not around so much nature, you know. And I feel like these spiritual practices are something that everyone could really benefit from, you know. Not everyone gets crystals, or not everyone gets tarot cards, not everyone gets these different palo santos, different scents and incense can, you know, all of these things that we can use. But I can, you know, everybody can benefit. I'm going to go out on a whim and say this: everyone could benefit from just sitting with themselves for like 10 to 15 minutes, even if it's 5 minutes a day, and just being
I
with
do
themselves, you know.
I do want to give the side note that I truly second you on this. However, there are different forms of meditation that work for different
Of
people,
course.
different nervous systems, different
And the
brains.
cycling's one of them. You just mentioned, right? Like the
Yeah.
100%, that is your grandparents' way of meditation. Like if you want to go out in the garden and plant a pot or like I don't know,
You
sweep
want to
your
go and
garden.
dance for an hour?
Yeah, go and sweep
Please.
your like, like go and sweep your patio, like that is a form of like I did that when I stayed in quick sidetrack. When I was in Thailand, I went and stayed at a monastery, Pape. You might have been there actually. Pape
I
meditation.
haven't.
Okay, so there's a
It's really
monastery.
bad.
Shout out Pape Monastery Retreat in Thailand, in Pai. Great place. One of the practices they got us to do in the morning, like 4:30 in the morning. Like
It's a
they get
good
up.
amount of time.
You pouring a tea. Everyone hear that? That's Nadine pouring out of a traditional teapot, everybody. Traditional teapot. I thought the Brits liked tea. I thought we were the kings of tea, but hey.
Well, I don't think you call this a tea. It's like ginger, hibiscus.
Oh,
It's more of a witchy thing.
a,
But it's really good for
a
you.
witchy tea. Oh, now we're talking. What is spirituality? It comes in a dean with a box of witch tea bags. So yeah, we used to get up in the mornings and sweep. And believe it or not, sweeping for any of you tradies out there that might listen to this, having to sweep is sometimes not a good thing, but it is. Like it's kind of therapeutic, and it's kind of like the other day I swept a huge room, right? And I looked at this room first of all, and I looked at this room the other day, and I was like, wow, it's really messy. But I swept it in such a perfect manner. Like I did it in straight lines. I got little piles, and I swept it. And by the end of it, I was so calm. I couldn't have fallen asleep. I literally could have laid down and slept on the surface. Like I was honestly, it was so therapeutic. And this is the thing. There are so many different forms of meditation. Whatever works for you. You don't have to sit there with your legs crossed, showing, chanting OMs. You can
It
really.
is a nice way though. But
It's a beautiful way.
I love
It is
it.
a beautiful way. And it's something that I try to teach anybody that I come into contact with or work with and say, look, these are the one practice that I really feel like can up your level in a lot of ways, hell of a lot of ways. If you're looking for some sort of uplift in energy or uplift in, positivity and love and radiance, everything really, sit with yourself for 5 to 10 minutes and just, yeah, allow yourself to think. We could go into a whole whole different topic now, couldn't we? Like if you think about it in terms of meditation, in terms of breath work, like
Yeah.
these are such topics, like the actual science behind the actual practice itself is just as like crazy as doing it, like with breath
I have
work,
some nice stories
what it
of
does to your.
weird practices to do.
Yeah, for like, the what your body's doing whilst you're doing these practices, and they're like ancient practices, like breath work, for instance. When you're doing
If
breath
you look,
work, for a lot of people that may never even heard of breath work, Nadine, do you want to like just quickly explain what breath work kind of does? Like, I know this is a bit of a sidetrack from like spirituality, but
oh,
I feel like when we're touching on the science behind these practices and the science behind sometimes spirituality.
if you look at what breathwork does, and we nowadays oftentimes call it breathwork, but almost every breathwork you can bring it back to the pranayama from yoga.
Mm.
And it's basically used to clear the mind. Like, breathwork is super connected to the air element. The air element is all about getting rid of like the mental clutter and like all the emotions. So doing the breathwork, you can do a million different ones. You have uplifting and energizing breathworks. You have calming breathworks. You have like breathworks that bring you inside the body. You have releasing breathworks where people start yelling and screaming. And what it does to you is it kind of like helps you either clean down the whole house, which is yourself, or it helps you to get into such a calm, connected state to the body where you can literally feel your body in such a deep way. And this is a funny sentence actually saying it, like feeling your body, because we can all feel our body, like we can touch it, but then to really be present with your body and to breathe slowly and get into that feeling of the body, it's such a different experience. And there are even types of breath work that kind of like give you the same experience as when you take some psychedelics, which is such a different type to get into, but it's so fun. Like some of the pranayamas I did, for example, when I was in Rishikesh doing my Kundalini yoga, like I was tripping my balls off.
Yeah.
I would always sit in the front row and I would open my eyes again and I would be like, ooh, I just like I
Mm.
saw 5 different movies with a million colors, had so many messages, and my teacher would always look at me and smile and be like, "You had a good time, didn't you?" And I would sit there like, "Yeah,
No,
I did."
it's
And
crazy.
it's so crazy because that was like at 6:30, 7 in the morning.
Mm.
I maybe have had a cup of tea, but that's all I had. Like,
Yeah.
there was no drugs, no psychedelics involved. It was just me breathing.
Mm.
And that is so beautiful.
No, it's insane how the experiences you can have. Like, I guess this was another. Do you know what? I had a breathwork experience in Pi actually, in Thailand last year, and it's important to like to mention that breathwork actually releases like a chemical, like the DMT chemical, right, or compound into your brain, which is what we have when we sleep and when we have these like we create these visions. We're able to activate that during breathwork, which gives us the same effects as what we have when we take substances, which also hits that same receptor, right, or that gland. So like again, the science behind it, like people say get high on your own supply. Like you literally can be tripping balls just from breathing, right? And I had this experience in Thailand, like it was so insane because it was the first time where I was like, whoa, like my body took over and I was, yeah, I had this crazy experience where I wasn't in control of my body anymore. Like my body was doing what it wanted to do and it was shaking and it was like releasing and I was crying and I was like screaming and like I had no control over that. Like, it was just happening to me, and that was a really profound experience. But like, Nadine, quickly, is there like a 2-minute exercise, right? Because I feel like it's good to drop like little practical tips in to like our
Oh,
podcast, right? Just for people to try, maybe like a short exercise of like just breathing in and out for a minute or two. Yeah, is there anything that we can give them a little pocket tool?
the first thing that comes into my brain is a very simple one, but it is super nice.
Go for it. Listen up, people.
It's just the yogic breathing, which means that you breathe in through the nose and you breathe in all the way to the belly. Then you fill up the belly with air. I'm literally pointing now at my belly and you
Mm,
all cannot see it, but for your understanding, you breathe in through the nose as slow as you can, all the way to the belly. You fill up the full belly. Then you go to the lungs or like the chest area and you fill that up completely. And then lastly, you go your collarbones, and you
mm,
also fill that up completely with air. You breathe in super slowly, and once that is fully full, you breathe out the same way slowly again, and you follow the same rhythm. So for the collarbones, it goes out, for the chest, it goes out, for the belly, it goes out. And you continuously keep on doing that for like a few minutes without stopping. And just as slow as you can, you breathe in through the nose, belly, chest, collarbones, you breathe out through the nose, collarbones, chest, belly.
mm.
And keep on repeating that. And you can see that this is a really calming and relaxing one. And it just really helps you to reconnect with the body.
I've always used like breath work, especially if I ever get worked up or, like someone cuts me off and I'm like, like get a bit angry, get a little, we're all allowed to do that. But I feel like sometimes it's like, okay, breathe, like breathe. I do that all the time now. And this is the thing is like, people may see these practices and be like meditation and breath work and yoga and be like, oh, it's this like hippy dippy spiritual stuff, and I don't want to do that. I'm not spiritual, I don't. But it's like, yeah, but it's now backed by science. Like it's now like confirmed. Like these ancient practices we've had around for millennia, you know, are actually having a positive influence on our body, on our mental health, on our lives. Like, why would you not
And
want to
it
do that? Like, why would you not? It's not something to be. Yeah.
to me, it doesn't have to be this hippy dippy spiritual thing.
No.
Like, we can go at it as simple as we can. Of course, you can do a beautiful ceremony and make it as beautiful as you want, but you
Mm,
can also just sit in a room with a group of people, explain what is happening to the body, explain how it can make you feel so that people know what to expect, and just start breathing.
mm,
And then after that, if you feel like it, share. If you feel like staying internal with yourself, that's actually really beautiful, and stay like that. Like, it doesn't have to be this scary, weird thing. And I feel like that is also a little bit what I would love to do with this podcast, is make that jump from no, I'm not spiritual, to doing practices that can be beneficial for
mm.
everyone, to make that jump a little bit smaller and make it a little bit more normal in a way, because I have co-facilitated a bunch of breathwork sessions, and I've seen a lot of people do breathwork in that way. And it has amazed me how much it has helped people and also how much impact it can have. Because this was DMT activating breathwork, and I've seen people who didn't cry for 8 years cry for the first time and be like, I feel so released. Or people who came in super tense and who walked out really relaxed. Or people who were like, whoa, this is the first time I remember my mom again, who has passed away a few years ago. Or people who were just like, hey, this actually just gave me a moment to be with myself. Thank you. In my opinion, it's so important for everyone to create those moments to be with ourselves. And it's just so beautiful that these practices like meditation, breathwork, yoga, or even if it's just a walk, that is the biggest benefit. And to me, to wrap it back to what is spirituality, it is just getting in contact with yourself. And through getting in contact with yourself, it is getting in contact with the world.
There's so much of it now. Like my feed is, and I guess this is because it interests me, different people and different people's perspective on it and how they view spirituality, how they integrate it, how they manifest it, what they've learned, right? Because I guess that we look at sometimes, although I do, certain Instagram or social media, let's say gurus or, people that are very, what's the word, highly knowledgeable around these subjects or certain practices or certain, I find myself sometimes going down this like rabbit hole of like so much information, of like this experience and the thing is you can listen to someone's experience but your sometimes is never going to be the same, right? So like everyone's experience is different, but I feel like I said earlier on, a lot of people now are going into spirituality as a profession, us both being coaches, or offering our services. But I feel like it comes from a place, and it's very important that I feel like we touch on this, is that, I know you will relate to what I'm about to say, and it's the fact that the reason I do what I do and the reason why I want to share what I want to share and help people is solely that. It comes from a place of the heart, right? It comes from a place of me truly wanting to help somebody else out because I've been through the same thing, or I feel I'm able to help them with what they're suffering with or what they're going through, right? Where against there's the other side where I feel like there's people out there just capitalizing on the fact that they now have ChatGPT and they now have all these different tools that people are able to call upon to be able to make programs, to be able to run workshops, to be able to run this and that, right? Without having this heart feeling or center behind it, right? And I feel like I'm getting good at now realizing that, and I'm getting good at now seeing that and being able to be like, right, this person's just doing it for the money, and that's okay. You want to go and make £1 million and be a billionaire and go sit on a yacht in Dubai? Fine, cool. Like if that's how you want to do it, right? But I feel like for me, this profession and people capitalizing off spirituality, for me, it's never been about that. For me, it's just like, I will work with the people that I want to work with, that I feel like I can help from the experience that I've had. And that's kind of it, like wherever that may take me. But yeah, I feel like there's certain people out there now that are proclaiming to be gurus. What makes a guru, Like, is it, like I said, having 30 ayahuasca ceremonies under your belt and all this sort of stuff, Like, yeah, I don't know. I think social media.
One nice thing to add to this, because I fully agree with you. And one thing that really stuck to me, and I do have to say, I love the fact that on social media there is so much information to be found, because it's so good for people who are just getting into topics. And even I follow some people who are way more knowledgeable than me, and I love seeing their posts. But one of my favorite people I follow is a girl who really points out like capitalism and colonialism in spirituality, and I love her. That's also me being a human rights lawyer. Like, one of my favorite topics is what is right, what is wrong, what are the ethics. But if you come back to like the Instagram spirituality, what my Reiki master taught me was, hey, someone who is meant to be working with these things has people come to you without you advertising yourself. The moment that you are writing elaborate marketing plans to lure people in and to work, you're not supposed to be doing this.
It's not authentic, is
And
it? I don't feel. I don't know.
yeah. And I
Really feel
really,
that.
because this conversation was like, he was teaching me about what does it mean to be a master. And I asked him like, hey, but there are so many people on social media, blah, blah, blah. And he laughed at me. And he was just telling me like, yeah, if you have to run an entire marketing plan, you're not supposed to do this. And at first I was like, what does it mean? And then if you think about it for a longer time, like people will feel your energy, people feel what you can offer them, and you don't have to prove that to them. They will just feel and come to you. And right now, that is really where I'm at. And of course, you and I both, we still post on social media, we still do our things, but it's not from a perception of, I need to sell. It is really from a perception of, hey, I can help by giving these tools for free. Hey, I can share my knowledge and hopefully work with people who are aligned with me.
Exactly.
And that comes from when I was a tiny, tiny girl, like when I was like 4 years old. If you would ask me, what do you want to do in your life? I would be like, I want to save the world. I can't,
I want to
clearly.
be a firefighter.
It's
Saving
a
the world,
nice one.
technically.
I wanted to save the world. I wanted to be my aunt who works for Doctors Without Borders. And I started studying law because I wanted to actually make a change in the world. And now I feel like through this work, I can still bring a change in the world by helping people to connect with themselves. And it's not them following what I think, it is genuinely giving them tools so they can connect to themselves and listen to themselves. And that is, to me, one of the most
Yeah.
mind-blowing things that you can do.
This is the thing. I think I feel like that sometimes as well with some of the work that we do. It's like, the goal really is to get the person you're working with to fully start to be aware of themselves and not have to take in all of this information and not be able to, like, to use it, but to actually be able to find it within themselves and to be able to make people understand, that they're in charge of themselves and they have full control over themselves rather than having all these external influences. And I feel like, again, spirituality, I feel like that's again another thing, term for it, is really understanding that pretty much everything that we do, everything we perceive, it comes from within. And yeah, I feel like being a coach or being a mentor or being, someone that's on Instagram selling these things and throwing a load of information at people, just expecting them to learn it and for them to just take it on and, pay X, Y, and Z, really getting to the end of the program or course or whatever, not having learned anything or feel any better because they haven't actually been able to really like deepen it and integrate it, And I feel like that's the difference in both sides. But yeah, gurus,
And in the end,
gurus.
there's nothing good or wrong, in my opinion.
No.
It's not like I'm comparing myself saying I'm better or I'm worse.
Mm.
All it does is, for me, make me rethink, like, oh, where do I want to come from? Because I feel like everyone is trying to do something good with a good intention. That's beautiful. And there's always something to be learned from everyone. So, yeah.
Okay, so Nadine, what is the next episode? We're going to wrap this one up. I feel like we've been talking forever. It's only been an hour, actually. It's good for us. We could
We've
talk.
done a good job.
Yeah, for people that didn't know, our last podcast, there was it was an hour long, but there was 5 hours of recording or something like that. And the beautiful
If I
Nadine
call
here.
Jack, it's never going to be like 10 minutes. I know that if I give
No,
Jack a
no.
call, it's going to be like a proper 2-hour chat.
Yeah,
Unless I'm like, I really, really have to go after 10 minutes.
I know. You want to hear what we talk about off the podcast, whoa. The last episode will be the next one next week, which will be the travel lifestyle compared to the 9 to 5, right? So
Yeah.
kind of what our whole podcast is about, going from the 9 to 5 to spirituality to all of these amazing things. So the next one will be about that. I'm excited to get into it because I'm literally about to go from the 9 to 5 back to nomadic lifestyle next week. I'll
This
probably
is fun, indeed.
probably be
Because
on a
you
plane.
go
Yeah, when
and
people
I'm
listen
coming
to this.
back.
And you're coming back. So Nadine's now come back from that lifestyle and I'm now going.
Mm,
Okay, she's come back for a bit.
yeah, but I'm not going to go back into a 9 to 5 job. So I
Okay,
don't think we can officially say that I go
true.
back to the 9 to
That
5.
is true.
But I am still back in the Western world.
Yeah, the Western world, exactly. Very different again from the East. So, yeah, that will be the next one. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Again, if you want to drop us any comments in the comments below, whether on YouTube or on Spotify, or send us a message on Instagram, then feel free to, if you'd like to hear anything, what you think of the podcast. We'd love some feedback. Me and Nadine just love sitting here gassing, really. It's just an excuse for us to do that. Anybody else that wants to come on, come on, send us a message, if you want to come
If
on and
you
talk
have
about
a nice
something.
topic you would love to discuss with
For
us,
sure.
let us know.
Please, I would love that. Anyone out there that would love to come on and sit and talk to us about, anything. We love everything. Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for chatting with me, Jack.
That's okay, Nadine. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye!